Hey, Kim Rowe with For the Nest, and this was my fun plant stand makeover. So join me, and I hope you learn a little something and have fun in the process. So these were old oak plant stands that I got at the Luckett's Market in Virginia, and I decided to give them a little makeover using Pure Power and clean water to clean them, and then using the micro green color by Farmhouse Paint in their Evolution line. I did one coat, let it dry, and then added a second coat to it. I had to look and see which transfers I wanted to use for this, and I ended up going with the Painterly Floral. It's one of my favorites by Iron Orchid Designs. I was actually thinking of using the sunflower, but realized I didn't have any sunflowers left, so I decided to use that. And then I love the Kindest Regards stamp, so I thought adding a little bit of a interest in the background, this stamp was perfect. And so here I am just inking it up. I use the ink pad and dab it all over the stamp itself. And this is just going to be a background. It's not going to be, I'm not worried about being able to read it or anything like that. So, but I did get a good amount of ink on it. And then once it's ready, I'm going to stamp my piece. And I like to usually hover over where I'm going to stamp first. This, like I said, is not that big of a deal because it's just going to be a couple little interest pieces. And it was a little tricky holding with one hand and pressing with the other. But again, I didn't worry if it was full, like if it really made full contact or anything like that. I just wanted it to be an interest for a background of these transfers. So once I did the stand part, I wanted to do the base, and I just pressed here and there. I didn't re-ink the stamp itself because I just wanted a little bit of the stamp to release, and so I wasn't too worried about it. But I did re-ink it before doing the top because I pretty much wanted the whole top to be covered. And here I am looking at the transfer, and because this was in a circle and I didn't want to cut the outer circle, I just bent the transfer a little bit and made a cut so that I could get in there and cut the whole circle out. I like to lay them out ahead of time, so here I am kind of just designing how I want it to look. Originally I thought about using the whole circle itself and maybe having it overlay over top of the other flowers, but as you'll see here, I pull the backing off and add the roses. And as I do that, I decide, you know what, I'm going to add this and have it hang over the edge a little bit. So while I'm pressing, I'm also going to press on the edge and have it release there and then pull it back. And I like to use the piece of paper that it came off of, I call it the backing sheet, and I buff the original transfer that I just put on there to make sure that it made good contact with the piece of wood. And then I'm going to add a leaf and some more flowers and just work my way around this design and kind of figure it out as I go. I will say though, once you peel that white backing off, the transfer itself is sticky, so try not to press it down too hard when you're putting it in your place to see if that's where you want it. And then once you know where you want it, you press it down and use the rubbing tool to release it. Sometimes when you remove that white backing, it can be sticky, and so I just always tell people, make sure you know where you're wanting to put it when you place it down. And then adding the leaves here, again, just figuring out my design. Now I'm going to add the circle in, and like I said, originally I was going to overlay it, but then I thought, oh, I'm going to cut this and just make it almost like a wreath that's going around these flowers. And so I'm just figuring out how to place that and then cutting the edge so that it looks like it's coming in from behind the roses. When I'm using the transfers, I like to grab a little edge and use the rubbing tool as I pull up from that edge. It just seems to make it release a little bit easier, and then I go back and buff the entire area just to make sure that it's really pressed down. Now I had that tiny little piece, that little extra scrap of transfer, and so I decided to put it on the base on the corner, and now I'm going to add a couple roses to the stand part, and there's some stems and leaves, things like that. And I decided to trim down at the bottom of the stem so that I can lay it right up against the base and have it look like it's almost growing out of the base. Again, I'm going to overlap the edge of the leaf onto the other side of the stand just to give it a little bit of a three-dimensional look. It actually turns out pretty cool when you layer those and also wrap them around the edges of things. It just depends on what look you're looking for. Again, I just buff the piece once it's on there. Now I'm going to add another little branch. I actually thought about having it come from the bottom, but then I thought, let me make it look like it's growing off of this other one. The transfers are really fun because you can kind of create your own design by layering them and cutting them and placing them in different areas of your design. So that's what I did here. And then adding the flowers. And at first it almost looks like the flower is just sticking out of the stem, but that's what's great about these. You can add some leaves and it all comes together in the end. And I was really pleased with how it turned out. So again, just creating the look that I want. Sometimes I peel the backing off and hold it above the area just to kind of get a feel for how it's going to look, because you can see through it. But just create your piece almost like a little puzzle and just build your design, and then that's it. Once I was done, I used a top coat by Paint Couture. It's called Extreme Guard, and it's an outdoor top coat, and I used the flat version of it, and it just did that, and then these pieces were done. I was super excited, and I love the way they turned out. If you're ready to try Iron Orchid Design transfers, you can get them on my website at forthenestwithkimrowe.com or stop in at the Iron Bird. We would love to see you, and I love helping people with their creations. Have a great day and happy creating.